My name's Robert Leib. I'm a Whatcom County resident for 27 years and a business owner for 21 in Bellingham and in the county. My wife Jamie and I, we raised 3 spirited boys in the county, with the oldest just turning 27 in September. I grew up in Vancouver, BC, and at a time and a place where the police would bring you home to your parents, and you were more afraid of your dad's reaction than you were of the police. In fact, I was petrified. The police were the kind of the preemptive thing to, oh crap, I gotta face my dad. Even today, the comparison between what happens on this side of the border and north of the border is quite startling. Since I was raised in this manner, I always felt that the law enforcement agencies were there for our safety. It was, if there was ever an issue, you could always rely on the police to help you. Only during the past few years did I come to the realization that we've kind of been snookered into believing one thing while a completely different thing has been going on in the background. As my kids were growing up, they made comments on how the police in the US were out to get them, where the police in Canada were out to educate them and make sure they were safe. We would spend the summers in Vancouver and Penticton, BC, and they would attend beach parties where everyone was underage drinking. The police would roll up and check to see who was underage and pour out their alcohol, call their parents, and if they needed call their parents to see if they needed a safe ride home, and then scold everyone to make sure that no one was driving. In the US, there would be a SWAT-like raid where the police would try and capture everyone they could and charge them with an MIP and get them into the court system. Heaven forbid that there was someone that was 21. They would throw the book at this person by acting like it was solely their responsibility that there was underage drinking taking place. These were only stories, but they made me think that something was amiss. When our middle son Connor developed a mental illness, we soon realized there was a real problem in Bellingham. We had him at the mental ward at St. Joe's twice, and on that second visit, a nurse asked us if he'd been involved with the legal system. My wife and I questioned, why would he ever be involved with the law? He has a mental issue. The nurse answered, that it's common in this town for the police to attend to some kind of disruption, and the mentally ill person gets arrested and pulled into the legal system. After we heard that, we were terrified of having anything to do with the police. When we had issues with Connor, we always tried to get him help and never called the police. We felt so helpless because he would get himself out of control, but we would not call the police because we were more afraid of the consequences from the police than we were of what Connor was doing. At one point, Connor moved downtown with his girlfriend, and it was not a good relationship. He ended up in an argument with her, threw a plastic cup at her. There was a mark next to her eye, and they were so loud that the neighbors called the police. When they interviewed Connor and his girlfriend, they noticed the eye, and off to jail he went on a domestic violence charge. He could not get out without posting $5,000 in bail. He got out and then proceeded to go back to his residence to move 2 coffee tables. The police were waiting. He received a no-contact order, and not only could he not be around his girlfriend, he could not even go to the home that he paid for. He was arrested again for that felony, and given a felony, and it was a felony burglary charge at his own residence. He then received $25,000 in bail. We left him in jail to cool him off a bit because we thought it was the safest place for him. He was not getting any follow-up care from the hospital, so we thought they would assess him and get him the help he needed. We had to fight him to get him to see a counselor. It was tough to keep him on his meds. We felt that at least in jail, he would get his meds and stay safe for a while until he stabilized. Boy, were we wrong. He was not given his meds at first, then later he was given the wrong meds. The prosecutor went after him and said that he was faking his mental illness. After a month of this nonsense, his lawyer contacted us to tell us that our approach to keeping him safe in jail backfired. He received 3 more felonies while he was in jail. He was acting up from lack of proper medication. He was being kept in the admin area in a cell with no cot or toilet. He acted up and they jumped on him to restrain him. He fought back and threatened the officers. These 3 big, healthy guards felt that their safety was in jeopardy, so they planted 3 felonies on him. We could not believe how the system was failing our son and how bad it was becoming. When we tried to get him help, they would tell us that he had rights, so he could refuse everything we were trying to do. But when they arrested him, it was all about him and how he had broken the law and needed to be punished. His prosecutor, James Hulbert, even had the nerve to tell me that his sister had mental health issues, and his parents ended up throwing money at it to try and fix it, and it did not work. So we should just forget about Connor and let it happen. The entire system that I had grown up to respect was crumbling before my eyes, and I couldn't understand why. It took over a year to clear things up, and we ended up having to plea bargain to one lesser felony. By that time, he was so beaten that he left us out of it and just accepted his fate. He had no understanding of what was going on, even until the end. After the felony, we realized that the system is, we started to realize that the system is kept in a perpetual state of failure on purpose. Why? Because there's a lot of money at stake. Even in a small county jail where you think that the services would be local, they're not. You use Airmark for food, if you can call it that. Legacy for phone service, you never get your free call. Alliance One for collections, commissary and eye care, which costs the families a convenience charge. These are just to name a few. Then there are bail bondsmen and lawyers that feed off of these people. Before you even get your day in court, a lot of people can easily be bankrupted, as most people are living check to check. The system is set up to hold you on cash bail and to watch you lose your job, housing, and family support. When you are down and broken, they offer you a limited time basis, this great plea deal. Get out of jail now and take a lesser charge. Once you do that, they award you with court fees and a good possibility of a felony. Whatcom County prosecutors love their felonies here. In our son's case, that meant homelessness because all the rental management companies do a background check. We found out that he was living in the back of a van on Woburn, so we moved him back home. So when you see so much homelessness around you in this town, and many of these people have a high likelihood that they've been through the what Whatcom County calls justice, it's not always how it looks. Really, they have literally been raped by the system and tossed out to fend for themselves with no visible means of support. Please look at these people differently. I certainly do now. We've all been snookered into believing that all of the people in Whatcom County Jail belong there, when the facts prove otherwise. We are paying too much even today for what we are receiving. We could have the population overnight if we outlawed cash bail, removed another 25% of the mentally ill and treat them. Isn't it better that an accused person goes back to work, supports their families, and then comes to court when needed? Why should we, the taxpayers, pay for facilities and staff for them to sit there? This makes no sense to any taxpayers that I speak to. It only makes sense to the prosecutor and the jail staff. It's all a big make-work project. Only real people's lives get destroyed by their actions. Even the sheriff admitted to me when we were on a private jail tour. The sheriff admitted to me on our tour that he had to tell the police that in this day and age that it was ridiculous to be arresting and jailing people for not having garbage pickup. Yes, that happens. Here are a few other stories that people have shared with me. No scheduled garbage pickup, arrested. That was from the sheriff. Placing garbage in the wrong can in a condo complex where he was staying in Sumas. That was my friend's son. He was arrested, spent time in jail, and fined $1,000. It's called theft of service. Look it up. At garbage placement in industrial cans when you cannot prove it's your own business. Theft of service. DUI. Okay, I don't agree with DUIs. However, arrested and jailed on $5,000 bail for blowing a .1. In jail for 2.5 months because he couldn't afford the bail. Plea bargain for time served. 5 years probation, $10,000 in fines just to get out of jail. That was the plea bargain. And he took the $10,000 because at least he could pay the $10,000 off over time. However, the $10,000 gets added to his, what the collections do, and with interest, he's now at $38,000. His wife, an MIP when she was 19, coming back from Canada with alcohol in her car. She didn't pay the fine. She's 19. She didn't really think much about it. She moved around a lot, didn't even live in Whatcom County, but came back when she was in her 30s. At age 34, she was ticketed for jaywalking in Bellingham. When they ran her name, they arrested her on an outstanding warrant, $5,000 bail, 2 months in jail because she couldn't pay the fine. She finally gets out. They finally just let her out on her own recognizance. However, the fines are stacking up against her. At that time, she lost her job in housing. And an employee of ours forged a check years ago, this isn't recently, but years ago. First offense, non-violent, held on bail for 4 months. Finally takes the plea because his girlfriend was pregnant and they said he would be out to see if the baby born. He got 9 months in Walla Walla, where he witnessed a murder in the first week. Got out after 6 on good behavior. Is that really how we treat people? Like, he's more damaged now than if he would have been fined or possibly even 30 days in jail. I can go on and on. I knew nothing about the atrocities that went on in this town until the past couple of years. I did not put them together until the last year when so many people started telling me the same stories over and over. The facts are that we are being snookered into thinking that bigger jails and more people incarcerated are what keeping us safe, when just the opposite is true. The out-of-control manner that the prosecutor conducts himself and the militarization of the police is making us less and less safe. They've created a system that victimizes the mentally ill and marginalized citizens. They add to their despair instead of helping them become contributing members of our society. By voting no to the jail tax, you're not being inhumane to the inmates and staff. You're creating a mechanism of change that the leaders will have to take note of. You're constraining the one thing that all of them understand, and that's money. Please stand with us and tell the leaders that enough is enough. We need to stop the growth of the commercial prison industry, and it starts here now. There's so many things that can be done with the hundreds of millions of dollars that they want from us to make this truly safer, and definitely not building a bigger jail is the way to go. Thank you.